because today I'm talking to Jess Peters. She's a paramedic from Rescueblue and also a mum of 2 boys.
That's
and she's
right.
going to tell us today all about the importance of baby first aid. So welcome, Jess.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's fantastic.
And I just want to, can you start off and just tell us, first of all, what inspired you to become a paramedic and when and how?
Yeah, so I guess, I mean, it sounds probably like a bit of a cliche, but I always liked helping people, and I always knew that I wanted to be part of something where I was involved in the community and helping people out. And then many years ago, probably 13 or 14 years ago now, I met a paramedic at a picnic, and he was telling me all about his tales of from the front line, and I just sort of knew that that was what I wanted to do. So I applied, and I was lucky enough to get in sort of first round, and I haven't really looked back. It's been quite, it's been quite a long career with lots of ups and downs, but I've been really grateful for it, so it's been good.
And how do you, as a mum of 2 boys, how do you manage, working as a paramedic and shift work, all of that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not always been easy to prioritise sort of my own self and my health and well-being, particularly when you've got 2 little kids. It's not always been easy to find that balance. I've sort of found over the last year or so I've been able to spend more time sort of focusing on making time every day, just at least once a day for myself, be it a run or listening to some music or something to sort of keep you a little bit grounded. Obviously, when you're doing shift work, it's very hard to get into routines, and you're dealing with a lot of sleep deprivation. So I always just try to be really aware of that and try and bring myself back to something grounding once a day, just to make sure my feet are on the ground still.
Yeah, I think we all need that. It's really good advice. Now, back to Rescueblue. So I know one of your big concerns is in the community there's a real lack of education about baby first aid. So why do you think this happens?
Yeah, well, I think when you're expecting, especially your first, you're bombarded with so much information about all the things that you need to do to have your baby and all the ways to take care of it, and you're worried about breastfeeding. And whilst paediatric first aid is important, I think for a lot of people it gets pushed to the side because of all the other information that they have to process. So, I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons why it just doesn't get done. And that, I think most people assume that the worst thing won't happen to them. I think a lot of people think bad things only ever happen to other people, but unfortunately I know firsthand as a paramedic that bad things do happen to all people. So, we need to try and be prepared about that. So at Rescueblue, we really have a focus on trying to reach those parents and get this information out to them about what to do in those seconds and what to do when those seconds count. So yeah.
It's similar. It's actually, when you're saying that, it reminds me, a lot of women just don't want to think about birth and labour. Like when you become pregnant, it's like, oh, I'm not going to think about birth until that's like right on my doorstep.
Correct.
And I'm always like, well, you don't prepare for a wedding 2 days before.
That's right.
It's at least a few weeks in advance,
Yes.
So I guess it's the same thing. It becomes scary the shorter you leave it, or if you get into a situation where you really need it and you don't have it. And it's just, I guess, having special tools. And I guess for me as a fitness professional, I mean, I've had to do first aid as part of my registration every year. I used to work as a surf lifesaver as well, voluntary. So it's something that's very, I know the importance of it. And I think not until you do a first aid course, you realise the importance of it. Yes. And also, like what we were just talking about before, making sure it's regularly done so it becomes second nature, because it's about not panicking in those situations too. So not only putting it out of the way to do a course, but regularly doing a course so it's not something too scary if you do get in a situation. So tell us a little bit about the difference between, say, a regular first aid course to a specific baby first aid course.
Yeah, so when you're doing a generalised first aid course, they are pretty much that. They're general in that they do cover a wide range of scenarios and first aid topics, but they really do focus on adult first aid. They might touch on paediatric first aid slightly, but they're really not giving that focus or relevance to first aid in the home. So when we're doing a paediatric workshop, we've really tailored that to be focused on specific first aid for children from 0 to 12. And we've made it relatable to the kind of incidences that you will see in your home. And all parents, no matter how long you're a parent, inevitably at some point you are going to have to implement first aid to your child, be it putting a band-aid on at the, at one end, right up to the other scale of having to, relieve them from choking or something like that. So the longer you're a parent, it's going to happen. So we really, try to make the courses as relevant for new parents as possible and easily to digest. Having said that, we do teach the full accredited first aid courses at Rescueblue. So if that's what you needed for, obviously, if you're a health professional, they are important. But we just find for parents, there's a lot of information, as we've already talked about, and you don't really need to be bombarded about what to do in adult first aid when you've got this tiny new little baby that you need to focus on. So that's why we really feel like it's really important just to sort of keep the information simple and easy for mums and dads and all carers really to process.
So and just not only, it's just that all carers, I think that's important too, because, in this day and age, a lot of kids spend a lot of time with their grandparents. And,
correct, yeah.
So there's a lot of old wives' tales that come with grandparents. I know that just from, dealing with pregnant women. And it's sort of like, it's so important. I think even every year when I do first aid, I learn something new, something changes, something's been updated. So let alone...
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, because currency is so important. I know even myself as a paramedic, in the last 11 years, protocols are constantly changing, and the Australian Resuscitation Council is constantly implementing updates. And we need to stay current with these sort of things. So really we should be saying to people, we want you to be recertifying and re-getting those qualifications and implanting that knowledge once a year, especially if you've got multiple children. Our suggestion is really to do it every time you have a new baby, because there might be new recommendations, new guidelines. As you mentioned, we do know some of those old wives' tales that pop up all the time that, grandma would have said in her day works just really well. But of course, now we know better, and there's a lot of things that we can do better. So, so currency is really important.
Yeah, and I think even from this perspective, the current climate that we're in this year, like the world has changed. We've never had to deal with a pandemic before. And
that's right.
For me to go back to work at the gym, we had to add a whole lot of level of training for that as well. Yes. So I think it's just now's even a better time to sort of make
and a lot
of
people are spending a lot more time at home with their children now, as opposed to maybe all being at school or being at childcare. So we are sort of seeing a lot more from an ambulance perspective. We are going to a lot more incidences around people's homes that they weren't sort of maybe aware of, because they weren't maybe spending as much time at home with their children in this environment. So it is something certainly to be aware of in our changing COVID world.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, more time at home and more time with the family, more time with children, and more time with different carers. So as a paramedic, I know you've probably encountered some pretty interesting and challenging situations.
Yeah.
And this, I think, also from your perspective, how you touched on how you regroup and recenter. But I also think for any parent who's been in a situation, which has been terrifying, where their child could have been potentially hurt or has been hurt, what are your recommendations on, recentering and turning this into some form of a positive?
Yeah, I think for me, as a mum and as a paramedic, whenever I've been to cases at work where there are families and mothers and children involved, I've always found that we are, as mums, we're always bonded through our shared experiences, and really relying on that support network of women around me has always been really helpful to me to try and sort of process and sort of, use your resources, I suppose, and your network for support and things like that. So that's always been really important to me in terms of just staying grounded, I guess, through it all, and not sort of letting things get too overwhelming. Obviously, we do see a lot of cases that have some poor outcomes, but through my job, we also get to see a lot of positive things as well, and that is, women and communities coming together and seeing that support network flourish a bit. So that's really good.
And I think what's really important, and this is from my own experience, is not only that network, but when you do first aid, it's knowing when to call an ambulance, because a lot of the time in the back of your mind as a mum, and this has happened to me, you think, oh, it's not that bad. Yes. So my daughter, well, I've got 3 kids, and when my daughter was not even 1, my son thought he was really helping out. In the car, as we got to the park, he thought he'd unbuckle her from the seat. And little did I know that she'd climbed up on the edge of the car seat. And meanwhile, the boys had got out and got their scooters, and they were scootering around the park. And I went to get her out, and she was leaning on the edge of the car seat. I opened the door. She falls out of the SUV on her shoulder into the gutter. You can just tell by that scream.
Yeah.
And I'm there holding her in the park, yelling at my boys to come back. And, it was probably a situation, it wasn't till I got to my first aid course that I was told, you should have called an ambulance. She could have gone into shock. And it's sort of this, no, I have to I can do it on my own. But I think that's a really important part of getting that first aid experience. And even, I didn't use it, which was really silly. But in hindsight, I really was like, oh my God, anything could happen there.
Well, it's always an interesting concept with paediatric first aid that we say actually a screaming baby is a really good baby, because we can, as soon as we get to a job or an address and we can hear the baby's crying, we almost have a sense of relief, because then we know the child's awake, it's got an airway, it's making a lot of noise, and it's got good circulation because it has the ability to make that sound. So screaming baby is always a good sign from that perspective. But I hear what you're saying. Even as a mum, my boys probably have had to wear the wrath of having a paramedic as a mother, because I probably also, like you, err on not treating perhaps when maybe I should. I sort of, they've often heard, if it's not bleeding, sort of, don't come and talk to me. So,
I know. I'm like, if there's no fire and it's not bleeding, you're fine. You're fine. Which I think comes with, when you have more children. But it is important to know. Yeah.
Yes. Definitely. And, that's what we try to do in our little aid course, is really relate all those experiences similar to what you just described to me then, and make it as practical as possible, and give people really practical advice on what to do in those certain situations. So we do touch on things like you just mentioned, like a head injury, and all the things to look out for, and when you should call an ambulance. And we give advice on, bandaging, what to do with, the big ones, choking, burns, or in the worst case scenario, obviously CPR. But we go all through that in quite a bit of detail, and give a lot of practical experience in the course, so that mums and dads really leave there feeling confident, knowing when should we actually ring and when should we just sort of sit and wait and watch. So
yeah, it's good to know. Now, I guess back to you. So tell us, you're not only a mum of 3 and a paramedic, but you recently ran a marathon as well. So how?
Half marathon.
Yeah, half marathon. Exercise, and look, you've obviously got to stay fit and healthy and strong for your job. But how does that also help you, not only physically but mentally?
So obviously, I mean, physically is the big one for work. We do need to stay fit. But for me, mentally, I think that I really rely on having, that's my time to zone out. So a big part of decompressing for me would be to put on some headphones and sort of go for a run for an hour, and kind of really just give myself that time where there's nothing else to worry about, there's nothing else to do except for just sort of keep running. So, running's obviously become a really big part of my life, especially now I'm living in Queensland. My My partner and I are both fairly passionate runners, so we we had an unofficial half marathon race a few weeks ago. Obviously with COVID, all the official ones have been cancelled, but we set the intention to get out there and do it. So we slogged it out in the rain and had a good day of it. But yeah, I mean, I certainly think that it's as important to me as nutrition and sleep in terms of keeping my mental health and everything in harmony at the moment. So
yeah, that's such good advice. So where's the best place where we can find Rescueblue?
Yeah, so you can follow us on Instagram. It's Rescueblue_8. We're also on Facebook as Rescueblue, and you can see us at our website, which is www.rescueblue.com.au. So we are offering private courses where we come to your home. We've also got some public courses up and running in Brisbane, which you can find details for on our website.
Great. And you run courses all around Australia, is that right?
Yeah, we do. So we are operational now. This is obviously part of our launch in Sunshine Coast, Brisbane and Gold Coast. We're also operating in New South Wales and Victoria.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, well, lots of places where everyone can find you, and I'll make sure I pop the links below. And so thank you, Jess. Thanks for your time and telling us all about Rescueblue. And
yes, thanks so much.
Paramedic, being a paramedic and the importance of paediatric first aid. I think it's something we all need to sort of bring a little bit more awareness to.
Yeah. We really want to see, you know, as many parents, carers, be it anyone who's looking after your child, really should have this information. You know, we sort of don't want to get. I guess we've as paramedics we go far too often to cases where mums and dads or people are standing by helplessly, not knowing what to do. And as second nature to us, these are skills that we can easily pass on, and it's information that we're really excited to share with people. So come check us out, and yeah, we hope to see you soon.
Yeah, definitely. And that's great advice, because it is something you want to ensure that it becomes second nature, not something you're scared of or put out of your brain because it's, you know, a little bit terrifying. Because I know that's like for a lot of mothers, it's like I can't even watch scary movies now once you become a mother. But this is an important tool that's going to, you know, serve you well for, you know, the lifetime of motherhood, and, you know, as you become a grandmother as well. So
it is. Well, that's right. And, you know, I think as mums we worry so much about everything all the time anyway. So by learning these skills, by having this knowledge, it's one thing that you can put off your list of things to worry about.
Yeah, so important. Thank you so much, Jess.
Thanks so much, Dallas.